Welcome back, piggies, to the Thanksgiving episode of the Pigskin Pals podcast with your host, AJ Daynes, obviously still in Japan this week. Hope he's having a good time. Can't wait to have him back next week and get back to the regular scheduled programming. Got a little bit of a fun episode for you in terms of a little extra DFS in there for fun for Thanksgiving on the Thursday slate. So without further ado, let's get stuck right into it. Here we are with the results of the Week 12 DFS, which happened to be one of the least competitive in terms of just me and Dane. I put up a generational stinker of a week, and he put up an incredibly solid week. It seems like everything he had hit. Almost his entire side is fire. Obviously, the Jalen Hurts pick went crazy. I was talking a little bit of smack against that just because I thought the boys might show up, and he hasn't been putting up too many points. Obviously, Pickens went nuts. The flying Dortchman, Greg Dortch, went crazy. Emmanuel Wilson. And then, obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs with a 58-pointer. I mean, what are you going to do about that? Meanwhile, for the amount of fires that he's got, I've got snowflakes. Just not a lot going on there. I tried getting some consistency from guys like Kamara and Jalen Coker and Breece Hall. I just didn't really get that. But that's okay. So it would have been really nice to win this DFS, put it to 5-7 rather than 8-4, because since it is Thanksgiving week, we do have a double header for DFS this week. We've got the Thursday DFS lineup for the Thanksgiving slate, and then also the normal week 13 slate. So we're starting it once again, since I am alone, just gonna have them already shown and speak through each pick rather than revealing them as we go, as we normally do with Dane. But I'll start with me, just because I got to go with my co-host here, Dak Prescott, at the quarterback position. They've been on a tear. Cowboys have been on a tear. They're coming out hot again off Philly. I feel confident in the Dak play. He's been playing like an MVP candidate. If this team had a couple more wins, I'm sure he'd be in that conversation. So I feel pretty good about Dak. He feels like a safe play almost every week. Dane goes with Patrick Mahomes, basically going at it. He's got Mahomes. I've got Dak. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, the matchup looks better for Mahomes, but I think Dak's been playing better this year than Mahomes has, so we shall see how that turns out. And then the running back battle. Looks like Dane paid up here for the running backs, whereas I definitely took a bit of a pay cut there. He's going with Gibbs and Henry. Henry obviously has an incredible matchup. That probably was a pick I should have made. However, you'll see later that I went a different route with my team. And then Gibbs plays to Green Bay, which is a tough matchup. But Gibbs seems pretty matchup proof, so I wouldn't really worry about that. I'm sure those two will put up a load of points. On my end, I've got Chase Brown against Baltimore. Also a good matchup. Chase Brown has been incredible the past couple of weeks. A lot of PPR points, a lot of touches, so he seems pretty consistent moving forward. And I think in this, what will likely be a high-scoring matchup, he'll be a really nice play this week. And then I went cheap here for the second one with Kareem Hunt. Obviously, the matchup is good, and he'll get guaranteed touches, red zone touches, chance to get in the end zone there. So I like that for a cheap 5,300 at the running back position. And then at wide receiver, it looks like me and Dane have actually two of the same. So we had the same idea with Romeo Doubs and CeeDee Lamb. I think Doubs was a good value for his price, which is kind of why I picked him, and I'm assuming that's why Dane picked him as well, along with the double stack or the go back stack with Gibbs there. And then Lamb, I'm obviously pairing with Dak. He is doing a little stack there with Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. So feels like it's going to be a bounce back game for CD after having a rough game last week. A lot of drops in both games with Philly, but especially in the last one. So I think they're going to be peppering him with targets. But I didn't want to just stop there. I really wanted to dig into this Cowboys love. And I also have George Pickens. So I got Dak, CD, George Pickens as my little triple stack there. And then Dane has Xavier Worthy, obviously, to stack with Mahomes. If you thought my stack was ending with those two, you'd be mistaken. I also have Jake Ferguson at my tight end position. I'm basically just banking on having a good time Thanksgiving Day, watching my boys put up 1,000,000,000 points. That's what I'm hoping for. Just putting all the juju here so that may happen. And hopefully they bring me some success in DFS as well. Whereas Dane is attacking the matchup once again and going with Mark Andrews and against Baltimore or against Cincinnati. So that seems pretty nice there. Dane going with Jameson Williams in the flex, where I had him last week and he put up a big donut, which means he'll probably put up 30 points against me, since that seems to be the way that the Jameson Williams pick goes. It's basically every other week. One week he'll put up a donut, one week he'll put up a 30, and I had the donut last week, so Dane will be able to reap the rewards there. And then I'm going with Zay Flowers in my flex against Cincinnati to kind of pair with Chase Brown for that game. And then we actually have opposing defenses. So he paid up for defense and went with the Ravens, whereas I went with the Bengals, just going as cheap as possible, hoping for a turnover or two. Don't necessarily see that one going super well, but I didn't want to pay up at all for defense. So that is the Thursday lineups. I'm basically betting on the boys. It looks like Dane is betting on the Chiefs and Baltimore mostly. Chiefs, Baltimore, and Lions. So he's going heavy on those three. I'm basically going heavy on one team. We'll see what happens. And moving into the normal Week 13 DFS lineups across the Sunday. I believe this includes Friday. I actually don't know. It might not. We'll see. This might just be Sunday, Monday. But we've got a couple crazy quarterback picks. It feels like a lot of good quarterbacks are playing, like high-profile name quarterbacks are playing on Thursday or Friday. So there's a lot of weird names to pick from in the quarterback position here on the Sunday slate. Dane is going with Tyler Shuck at 4,400, which I think is probably a really good value. He's been playing outstanding, and he gets a nice matchup with Miami. Whereas I'm going with Jacoby Brissett, who's a little bit more expensive, but has been an absolute fiend for the past couple games. He's been putting up crazy numbers, throwing the ball a ton. I don't see that stopping here with a pretty nice matchup in Tampa Bay, which might be Bakerless. So it could be a game that Arizona wins as well. As for the running backs, looks like me and Dane both like the cheap Devin Neal play with Kamara likely not playing. He looks great in the touches he got last week, and he has that good matchup in Miami, so that should be nice. Whereas I am going with ETN for my RB2. He has been absolutely lights out. He has a great matchup into Tennessee. Whereas Dane is going Devon Achane, kind of with that stack against Tyler Shuck and Devin Neal against New Orleans. So Devon Achane's been pretty solid all year. You've been basically guaranteed double-digit points every week, so I would assume that will happen again. Moving into the receivers, it looks like me and Dane both kind of threw a little something together. We got one guy we think is a stud, and then two guys who maybe we're putting a little bit of a bet on there and don't have too much hope in. However, I got Justin Jefferson. I just don't see a world where he stacks up this many bad games in a row. I don't know if JJ McCarthy's playing. If he's not playing, that might be a win for Justin Jefferson. So I look for him to have a bounce back game and just get peppered with targets. Dane has Devontae Adams, who has been a touchdown, a 1 yard touchdown fiend. He's absolutely, I think he has like 9 touchdowns inside the 5 yard line, which is absolutely insane. I would wager he'll probably score another one. It's just who Stafford looks for in that area. And then Dane rounds his receiver core out with Jaden Higgins and Quentin Johnston. I think both nice plays, both with good matchups. I think that's kind of what he was probably looking at there. Just matchup based, cheap, nice finds there. Whereas I kind of did the similar thing. I went Khalil Shakir with who has the best matchup of the week against the Steelers, who have the 32nd ranked defense against receivers. And I'm assuming will be a bounce back game for the Bills after a rough one last week. And then I also have Michael Wilson, who to pair with Jacoby Brissett, who has been crushing it with Marvin Harrison Jr. out. Even if Marvin Harrison comes back, I'm not convinced that Michael Wilson's not going to get continued targets like he has been. And I'm going even deeper, and I'm going Trey McBride as well. He's a guaranteed 15 points a week at a tight end position, which is unheard of. This is where I started my build around, was Jacoby Brissett, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride. Really confident in these 3 plays and the Cardinals this week. So I'm hoping that can take me to the promised land there. Dane at tight end is going with George Kittle, which should be pretty nice. Kittle has been really, really good with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's looked okay last week. He obviously struggled a little bit, but George Kittle will always get his no matter what. And now I see where Dane's points went. I was really confused how he's paying so little for all these guys and why, but I see now that Bijan Robinson is there in the flex. So Bijan and HN is a scary duo there. And I'm going back to the Mac Hollins well in a nice matchup, just looking for a long touchdown. I think the rest of my guys are going to score points, hoping for a long touchdown to just boost this score. And then we both paid $2,200 for defense, hoping for some turnovers. I think mine looks better going into New England with the Giants because their defense has been okay, whereas Titans has been not great, and they're going into Jacksonville, who's been pretty good on offense, especially on the ground. So we will see. I feel pretty good about that, but 2-0 would be huge here. Take it to 8-6 on the year and bring me right back into contention with Dane in DFS. So that will be a good time. Moving on to our redraft picks. I had a awful week last week. Dane didn't have a great week either. I think he went 3-3. I went 2-4 in picks, so that was not cool. I also went 0-2 just in general in these leagues. I lost in both Dynasty and Redraft, which sucks, but we're hoping to have a bounce back week this week. And our one difference that we have is Ethan versus me. It always seems to happen that I pick myself and Dane does not. He says he's not a certified hater, but I'm not sure I agree. But we'll take a look at this matchup since I believe it's the only difference we have across the board this week, even in Dynasty. So looks like this is Dynasty. Let me pull up. There we go. So I've got Baker here. I believe I have an auto sub for Sam Darnold, and I also have a trade in the works right now, hoping to get Lamar Jackson from Ben, which I think would be a big boost to my team in general. I would need to get rid of Breece Hall at that point, but I think that's fine. I have Omarion Hampton, Javonte, Chase Brown. I'm good with giving up another running back like that just to get an upgrade there at quarterback because Baker and Sam Darnold haven't really been cutting it super well for me. Anyway, so I could have Lamar there. Otherwise, I'll have Baker or Sam Darnold. Ethan will have Mahomes. I think that's probably an advantage. Ethan right there if I don't have Lamar. And then I've got Javonte, Breece, Omarion, and Chase Brown as my running backs in flex. He's got Saquon, Jalen Warren, Jawan Jennings, Christian Watson. Right off the bat there, that just seems like a massively in my favor. So that's kind of where I'm at there. And then you go to the receivers, and it's Pickens, Jefferson against Wan'Dale and AJ Brown, and that feels, again, massively in my favor. So I think Dane's being a certified hater. I think my team on paper just looks way stronger. Maybe the matchups are there for Ethan, but I'm going to take player over matchup most days. And that's going to continue this week with my team. So I feel confident going into this week in redraft. I think if I win, I probably put myself in a nice position in terms of playoffs. So really hoping for a win there. And then Dynasty, we have the same picks there across the board. You'll note that Dane is ahead of me in both Dynasty and redraft picks as well. So he's kind of crushing in all regards. And we both have Ethan this week against me, which is a big bummer as this is a huge week for Dynasty playoff implications. I'm currently out of it right now because I had a big loss to Ben last week, which obviously is not great considering he's one of the lower teams in the league right now. So I'm hoping if I can pull out a win or two moving forward, that should be enough. I think if I win this week, I'm probably in. So I'm really hoping to pull out a win. I just don't see it happening with the matchup. Ethan has just great matchups across the board, and I'm not too confident in mine. So we shall see. I'm hoping to pull out a nice dub. I've been confident the past couple weeks and faltered. So I'm hoping that if I'm not confident that I'll pull through here as well. And I also want to take a look at Dane's matchup because while Dane is like guaranteed in, this is an important matchup for Ryan and probably one of the closer matchups of the week. Looks like Jordan Love versus Caleb Williams. That should be a good matchup there. Chase Brown, Jalen Warren, Ladd McConkey, Travion Henderson versus Bucky Jameson, Taylor Hall. There's just a bunch of studs here in this matchup. And a lot of good fantasy matchups for these players as well. So it should be a high-scoring matchup and a really close and fun one to watch. I myself think Dane will pull it out. I think he's just got a couple better matchups in there and guys who can really boom this week, and that will take him over the edge. And that is all I have got for you guys this week for the Week 13 preview of the Pigskin Pals podcast. I hope everyone has an absolutely amazing Thanksgiving. Don't forget to get in on the DFS this week and let us know what you think about our picks and what you think the big boom of the week is going to be. But thank you all for watching. See you guys next time.